We ready to begin? All right. Hey, so thank you all so much for coming. So as some of you may remember from last year, actually we only had like 4 people here last year, so some of you all probably don't remember, but I like to just kind of open up with a quick overview of what's happened either recently on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen or some other issues that we may be taking up, and then just feel free to open it up and answer any questions that folks might have. So a couple updates from last week at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. We took several different votes, which I think were extraordinarily important on some of the big topic items in the city. So 3 specifically that dealt with homelessness. So as I've said from the beginning, I think homelessness needs, see? This is my own fault for not taking my own advice about turning off cell phones. But as I've said from the beginning, I think homelessness needs to be dealt with in a comprehensive way, which includes law enforcement, addressing the underlying drivers, and then on the back end, make sure that we have enough affordable housing to stop people from falling into homelessness, but also for those that have addressed their underlying drivers of homelessness, there's got to be a release valve, a pressure valve from our shelters to get them into housing to ultimately break that cycle. So those are the steps that we took last week. More specifically, last year, the city of Manchester was the first city in the United States to ban camping after the Supreme Court decision allowed the cities to have a little bit more of a freer hand as it pertains to addressing encampments. So we took 2 votes that night. One was to ban camping in the city of Manchester. The second one was to take $500,000 away from a department or a program that I didn't feel was up to snuff, that wasn't performing well. We took that $500,000, we transferred it to the police department so that they could patrol hotspot areas specifically in the downtown Alderman Long, where we had encampments around Veterans Park, Victory Park, and families in transition. The way that program, the new one with the $500,000 from the police was set up though, was specifically written for just the downtown area. So what we did last Tuesday was we broadened that. So if we have any type of homeless challenges, encampments throughout the city, the change that we made last week allows for that $500,000 to be spent on the police throughout the entire city to address encampments. So that's one of the actions that we took last week. The second one was setting up well, you can address. This was an incredible effort by your aldermen here, Kelly Thomas and Bill Barry in Ward 10, but to set up or expand a mobile crisis unit at Hope for New Hampshire Recovery, to go out into the community to connect people with recovery resources, to connect people with housing, to connect people with mental health services. It's incredible, and the second piece to it was adding a case manager to the team at Hope for New Hampshire Recovery. So last year, I met with all of the primary nonprofits that address homelessness in the city of Manchester. And I said, what is the biggest difference that we can make on homelessness? And they said, hiring more case managers, having more case managers who can help be that guiding hand to connect an individual throughout the entire process, from the time that they're homeless to the time that they get into a shelter to the time they get into transitional living, and ultimately, hopefully, getting them into some form of rehab, detox, address the underlying drivers, and then get them into housing on the back end. But the challenge is navigating those different continuums is extraordinarily difficult. So what we did last week with the program that Kelly had brought forward was we expanded the mobile crisis unit, and we also hired gave the money to Hope for New Hampshire Recovery to hire a case manager to help break down the challenges that we have in our shelters where people are just trapped in the shelter. So this will help with that continuum that we need to build to get people out of shelters, into housing, and into stable housing. The third piece that we took, or the third vote that we took last week, was on the creation of 30 transitional housing units at 231 Merrimack Street. So I'll back up a little bit on the housing side just to talk through why I think that is important. So right now in the city of Manchester, we have a 0.6% vacancy rate in the city. Roughly, for a healthy housing stock in a city, you need 6%. So we have 1/10 of the housing that we need in the city of Manchester to have a healthy housing market. So what does that mean? Rents go up, prices go up. We have the #1 hottest housing market in the United States, which is fantastic in one way because it means we're doing good things here, but it's not fantastic in another way because basic supply and demand will tell you that if a lot of people want to live here, the cost of living is going, or the cost of housing is going to go through the roof. So what does that mean? Let's say that you are homeless, unhoused in the city of Manchester. Let's say you had an underlying drug addiction or mental health, or you have an underlying challenge getting connected to any kind of services. Let's say you address all of those issues. Do you think that that individual has $1,800 or $2,000 a month to spend in rent? No. So what happens is they stay stuck in the shelter. So the important piece that we did over the last 3 or 4 months, I've been working with several department heads and a nonprofit that previously operated out of Nashua that's now operating here in Manchester, worked with that nonprofit to set up 30 different transitional units at a building at 231 Merrimack Street. What we're going to do is we're going to identify individuals that are living in our shelters and make sure that they are ready for housing, meaning that they've addressed their underlying drivers, so whether it's addiction or mental health. It's a high barrier transitional living unit. We're going to identify those individuals and we're going to get them into housing. So that's going to create space in our shelter to get additional people off the street, and it's going to get people into housing. It's going to break that cycle so more people are getting off our streets and becoming productive members of society. So we took really 3 big actions last Tuesday to address homelessness in the city of Manchester: law enforcement, underlying drivers, and housing on the back end. Another update just on the law enforcement side: the Manchester Police Department issued their 2024 release last week that showed that crime in the city in the last 12 months dropped by 15%. So we had some really fantastic news on the public safety aspect in the city of Manchester last week as well. Speaking of public safety, that's going to be the transition into what we've been talking about since the beginning of the week, bail reform. My understanding, where's Steve? There, sorry, front row. My understanding is that bill is going to be voted on Thursday in the House, HB 592, right? So this is something that I've been talking about since 2023 when I campaigned for the office the first time, that we need to get violent and repeat offenders off of our streets. In 2024, 27% of all individuals that were arrested in the city of Manchester were out on bail at the time of their arrest. So in the last, when I testified on HB 592, which is the House version of bail reform, about a month and a half ago up in Concord, when I testified on that, I had asked the police, give me some recent examples of individuals who were released after being arrested and the crimes that they were rearrested for. And it was murder, stalking, stabbing, assault, violent assault, drug possession. Those were some of the top 5 events that we had run into. So obviously it's a massive problem. So this has been something that I've been talking about for a while. We've got to get violent and repeat offenders off of our streets. So about a month ago, I asked the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to sign on to a letter urging Concord to take steps to fix the bail issue that we have in the state of New Hampshire. All 14 members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen signed on. Again, like I've said, this is not a partisan issue. This is a public safety issue. This is an issue where Republicans, Democrats, Independents can come together and say, we've got to get this done for the safety of our city. I also worked, every month I have a call with the 12 other mayors that are in the state of New Hampshire, and I made a pitch to them to join me on a similar letter saying basically the same kind of thing, that we've got to reform our state's bail laws. We have vacancies in our departments, and this only compounds the challenges that they have when they're policing our streets. So 7 other mayors signed on to that letter. So last night we released both of those letters and sent them to the legislature. Tomorrow I'm going to be up in Concord. We're going to do a press conference with Governor Ayotte, a sheriff from Stratford County, and some victims' rights groups as well to continue to press the legislature to take action on this. So hopefully we see some progress on Thursday in the State House. Steve, keep us posted. Let us know how it goes. I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic we can get something done. But so those are just a couple big updates from the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and happy to, look at that, we did it right in about 10 minutes, but happy to answer any questions folks have. Yes, sir, in the back.
My question is, how do you define affordable housing? I know a development on the north end build affordable housing, but those houses were $775,000.
Yeah.
3-star garages, affordable housing, affordable to who?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so great question. So several things on this piece. There's a technical definition of affordable housing. It's 60% of area median income. So 60% of area median income is roughly $1,100 to $1,600 a month for rent. So like as I was talking about kind of before, to me this is a basic supply and demand issue. Right, so we have a high demand to live here. This is the #1 hottest housing market in the United States of America. High demand to live here. So when we have really low supply, like a 0.6% vacancy rate, and you have high demand, prices are going to do what? Right, they're going to go through the roof. So 60% of AMI is the definition of affordable housing. The more density we're able to create, where it makes the most sense, so like in the downtown area, if we're able to, put, obviously you're not going to put a 30-story building in Ward 1 or over here where it's residential, but where density makes sense in the downtown area, you add more units in those properties. Then you can look at places like Hackett Hill. YDC is, happy to answer that question, but YDC is a longer-term project that the city of Manchester is going to work with the state on as well. Did that answer your question?
yeah, but I guess the other side of that question is they've all been larger homes and not really, I guess I would say starter home, like ranches and
Yep.
stuff where people get in to start and then maybe an elderly sell their larger homes and move into later, get someone who moved into later and people could buy their larger homes. It's like a cycle, so to speak.
Yeah, so when I talk to the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, that's what we talk about is what does I forget the metaphor that he used, but it was basically like a shell, right? So when you're 21, 22, you fit in this little cramped shell, right? And then you grow out of that as you get more income and you're able to move into bigger places. So to that point, there's 191 units of affordable housing going in on Merrimack Street, 125 units going in at the Pearl Street lot. That's going to start. There's another 60 units on Rogers Street that should be going in as well. There's 14 units going in at the Lamont Hanley building. 14 of the 34 units are deemed affordable that's going in at the Lamont Hanley building. That should open up this spring. So there's a blend, there's a mix of what's coming online. Certainly, you see some of the Brady Sullivan Tower, like 1000 Elm, 1230 Elm, those are on the upper end. But we do have a good blend of what's coming on. So when I talked to the planning department, the last time I had asked them for these statistics, they said about 300 units of affordable housing are currently on track to be built this year. We have about 750, 800 units in active construction right now. So almost half of what we're building would meet that clinical definition of affordable. Yeah, because I agree with you. There's got to be a mix. There's got to be that missing middle is also what they term it. So that missing middle is going to be, your firefighters, your police officers, your teachers, the folks who are making 50, 60, 70 grand a year. Yeah. Hey, come here.
Oh, I think you were first.
Okay.
Go for it.
Whoever would like to.
Actually have like 2 parts here. Where you were talking about the money for the police, you said you got like 500,000 from another area that wasn't performing. I thought that's why you raised taxes to 3%, was to get more police on the street.
No. So the program that we eliminated was the park ranger program. There were 3 park rangers who were funded by ARPA, so the federal dollars that came from DC during the pandemic. So that $500,000, you basically had 3 park rangers who were responsible for, I think it's 20 miles of like rail trails that we have in the city. They're responsible for the 2 splash pads. They're responsible for the 2 ice rinks. I just didn't think it was a good use of the federal dollars to have 3 people trying to cover that entire amount. So I asked the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, which they voted obviously in favor of, I asked them to eliminate that program, transfer the dollars that we had to the police department specifically for these hotspot patrols.
So what did the increase in taxes go to?
Yeah, sure. So multiple things. So last year when I first took office, what you get is a one-pager, and it basically outlines what the current fiscal condition is of the city. So what we were looking at when I first took office was a 4% cost of living adjustment, which is $6.5 million, $2.5 million or a $2 million increase in healthcare costs. There was $700,000 abatement overlay from the Mall of New Hampshire, and there was $1.5 million surplus that was used previously that I had to cover. So that was $10.7 million on the city side. Then the school district requested $5.2 million in funding as well. So that turned out, so that was $15.5 million that the city was being asked to spend, which would have required us to break the tax cap, to override the tax cap. That was the first budget that I looked at. So I said, well, obviously that's not going to do. So we went to work. We cut $600,000 in funded vacancies. We cut $1 million out of the cash CIP line. We rejected $1.8 million worth of spending to the departments, several other areas. But the ultimate budget that was passed by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen was 3.43%. That was the furthest that we had ever come under the tax cap. What my red line was, is I said that I'm not going to cut the police department. I'm not going, because obviously if we call the police, we want them to show up. I'm not going to cut firefighters, and I'm not going to cut DPW. Presumably no one wants their trash to be left out on their lawn. Presumably no one wants police not to show up. So that was the red line that I had. We also cut $4.2 million off the school district's request. So they had asked for 5.2, we gave them $1 million, so we cut 4.2 off of that. But my red line was I didn't want to cut and gut essential city services.
So do you think there's still more that we can, there's still more?
So the challenge that here's, if you look at the last 10 years, so this is actually a question that Pat had asked in one of our budget meetings. So the previous 10 years, the city was underfunded by about $10 million when you look at what the school district had got and what the city had got. The school district had got about $10 million more than the city side had. So what that meant was every year the city was being level funded. So their salaries couldn't grow, the departments couldn't grow, they were making cuts where they had to stay under the tax cap. So as I look at the city, certainly there are areas that we can trim, and that's what we did last year, and that's what we're going to do this year as I go up to do my budget in the next few weeks. But the areas that I will be, that I will set up as red lines are when it comes to public safety. And certainly I think I'd be getting an awful lot of phone calls that people's trash wasn't getting picked up either. So yes, there are certain areas where we can cut, which is what we did last year and what we will do this year. I think there are creative ways that we can save as well. It's one of the things that I ask all the department heads to do when we do our budgets is come to me with items where you see savings. We just took a vote on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen last week where we were using our MER funds, which is basically bonding, but we bonded $100,000 for the purchase of a truck so that we can save now $80,000 every year out into the future. So that was an $80,000 savings there.
I have a problem with still like funding the schools so much where their grades are going down and the registration levels are also going down. So I don't see why our schools need that much money.
Yeah, so what I've talked about is I don't think that the pendulum should go like this. I think that we should be thoughtful, we should be methodical in our approach. We can make reductions, but what I didn't want to see was us to turn around, right away and start cutting, tens of millions of dollars from an organization. I don't think that that's a proper way to govern. I think that's where mistakes can happen if you move too far, too fast. And so I think you want to be thoughtful, you want to be methodical. So they asked for 5.2 and the amount that they got was 1 million. This year they're requesting $10 million, which is what they're allowed to under the 4.27% tax cap. I can assure you that that's not the number that they are going to get. But I'll give I'm charter mandated to give my budget address by the end of the month, so stay tuned.
Right. And I just had a quick question about when you were saying it, I know I keep saying quick question, about getting homelessness people off the streets. Do we have illegal aliens here? Are we a sanctuary city?
We are not a sanctuary city, nor will we be a sanctuary city. We cooperate fully with law enforcement. I just spoke with the guy that runs ICE for the city of Manchester, and I said, look, what do you need from the city? How can I be helpful? And what he said to me was, we want your daily arrest logs. So now they get our daily arrest logs. But yeah, they're in the city. I mean, they're in the city of Manchester. They work in the city of Manchester. Their department talks with, or their agency talks with our agency frequently. We work together. If they called us and said, hey, look, we have an HVT, we have a high value target, we have somebody here who's committed a crime, we have, when current administration, when the Trump administration came out and said that they want to do these mass deportations, they said they wanted to focus first on those who are criminals, those who have committed crimes without or beyond the fact that they're not here legally, but have committed crimes here, and those who are on the terrorist watch list. Right? So I mean, I think that is totally appropriate and long overdue. And of course, we would play a role in working with them, and we do.
Well, that's good to know. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was going back to what I didn't know for sure. I'm like, I hope we're not a sanctuary.
No, and we're not a sanctuary county either. I talked to the superintendent of the county jail, because that was a question that came up at the BMA meeting last week. And I called the superintendent, Joe Costanzo. He's a really phenomenal guy. He'll take anybody's call if anybody has a question. But I asked him, I said, are we a sanctuary county? And he laughed. He said, absolutely not. This was a myth that got developed somewhere, but we are not a sanctuary county.
Thank you.
Yeah. Camille, and then we'll come over to this gentleman here. Great jacket. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to start with Camille. She had her hand up, and then we'll come right over.
Sorry. Hi.
How's your son doing?
He's great. He actually attends this school, which I have a question about as well later. But I just wanted to make a correction. We're actually number 3 in the country. I'm your local real estate agent. We are the number 3 hottest market. We usually bounce between top 5. But with that being said, I have many elderly neighbors who, with the new over 3% in taxes, are now going to be forced to sell their homes and move into apartments. So that's very sad, in my opinion. You know, folks who've lived their whole lives, they don't even have a mortgage anymore, but now they're on a fixed income. And now the average Manchester taxpayer is going to see an increase of between $215 to $250 per year on property taxes. So with that being said, 7.59% of those taxes go to education. Where did all the COVID money go?
So we have, in our planning department, we have 3 different individuals who were funded by ARPA to oversee all of those funds. It was $47 million worth of funds. So I mean, off the top of my head, I can't tell you where all $47 million went, but a lot of it went into affordable housing. A percentage of it went to our community partners. I mean, there's a whole list of it. For me, I mean, the majority of that was allocated and expended long before I came into office. Last year, we did, our final ARPA obligation packet was like 1.7 million. So that's what I could speak to most fluently. I mean, all those were voted on by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in December of last year, but it went to a variety of projects within the city. We gave some money to Manchester Police. It went to Manchester Police Athletic League. It went to Manchester Community College to get an education for underprivileged individuals or kids who were coming through the high school system. Here, it went to our independent city auditor, which had been laying vacant for 6 years in the city. So now we're going to bring on our independent charter mandated city auditor. Yeah. But the $47 million is all online, so it can be found right there.
So my follow-up question is, if there was all this additional grant money for COVID, that should have been banked. If it wasn't being spent properly, then that's something different, correct? But shouldn't that have put a jolt in the arm of the education department, and shouldn't that have eased taxes? Because now, what is your plan for all of the elderly people that are going to be displaced?
Okay, so which is your question? ARPA or?
What's the plan to allow?
To wean us off of ARPA? Yeah, so when I go through the budget process.
No, to allow elderly people to stay in their homes despite the fact that there are constant tax hikes for an education system that is down 31% enrollment.
Yeah. So the enrollment or the enrollment numbers this year leveled off. So we haven't lost any students in our school district this year. It leveled off. It changes, it fluctuates on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, but it's leveled off from the declines that we've seen in previous years. But what I said last year and what I'll say again this year when my budget is released, I couldn't agree more that we have to rein in the spending, which is why we reduced their request last year by $4.2 million, because we do have to rein in the spending on it.
So that being
And we're
said-
going to do the same thing this year. They requested 10. They're certainly not going to get anywhere near 10 million. So
with that being said, why didn't we veto the new school project if we are down in enrollment and that's what's busting the cap on taxes, or that's what's increasing everyone's taxes? We have a 31% decrease in enrollment over a long span of time, but if there's less students, then there's less cost.
Well, so 2
The
years.
math doesn't math.
Well, so multiple things on that front. What's blowing up our school district budget right now is special needs. I mean, that's what we talked about today. It's special needs. It only takes 1 or 2 students to, almost entirely eliminate the trust fund that they have for special needs students. This year alone, it's going to cost an extra $5 to $7 million, which I don't disagree that the school district has dollars to spend, but it doesn't take a lot of special needs students to totally blow a hole in the budget. But as it pertains to the Beach Street School, I made my statement when we took that vote that this was going to be paid for by state adequacy aid. This year we got an extra $11 million in state adequacy aid, so state adequacy aid hasn't been cut, and that's the reason why they're able to request so much money this year from the city, in addition to the tax cap, is because we have so much more adequacy aid coming into the city from the state.
I don't believe it's a special needs issue. I don't think that those schools are specifically designed to only.
Well, no, I
help
was
special
referring to
needs
the budget
students.
question that you had. Why is the
So-
budget going up so much?
Right.
It's primarily
So
due
what will a
to
brand
special
new
needs.
school or multiple brand new schools do for special needs students if they're not even attending the school?
Yeah, this is a comment that I've already made, that if I were mayor at the time when this was proposed, I would never have supported it in 2023 when this was first
But you
brought up.
supported it recently.
Yep. And like I said, when it passed on that night, had I been mayor in 2023, this is not something that I would have ever done. The situation that I was in at the time was once they closed the Wilson Street School, there were 400 kids that were in modulars. Those 400 kids that were in modulars were going to sit there until a couple things happened. We either built a new school, or we rehabbed other schools, or we rebuilt the Wilson School. All of that would have cost money. So even if I didn't have a bond, we still would have had to have gone out to bond for another project.
Right, but it could have been
for,
a lesser price tag, right?
not the
where do we
projections, not the projections that I saw and that the entire board of mayor and aldermen saw. The projections that I saw was that the Beach Street School was the most cost-effective alternative. The other alternatives would have cost far more. If we had to renovate the existing Beach Street School and McDonough, it would have cost more. To renovate the Wilson Street School would have cost more than just tearing down we don't even have to tear down the existing Beach Street School, but it costs less money to build a new one than it does to try and rehab the other schools. But
So why aren't we maintaining the buildings? Where's that money going?
yeah, no, deferred maintenance, that's a huge piece of the budget that has to be fixed. But I've been here 15 months. Like, the deferred maintenance that we've had over the last 30 years has expanded exponentially. But I only have so much control over the budgets from 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The deferred maintenance piece of it.
I personally would have appreciated it, and I think all of the elderly folks that are being priced out of their homes would have also appreciated applying a tourniquet, stop the bleeding. Phase 1 was approved, great. Now come up with a better, more cost-effective phase 2 and stop overspending.
Well, I'm not going to support phase 2. That's $2.6 billion. I'm not going to support phase 2.
And if I may, I have had some opinions on making an alternate school, which we had to talk about today, because I knew, even from being on the school board previously, that we were spending millions and millions and millions on special ed, right? But we hear not every student is actually getting the services. I want to see personally it in the city. That way we can get revenue from, you know, outside districts coming into this special school that we should be making, because Manchester has, you know, the highest population of, you know, at-risk kids, right?
So what's the plan to increase the educational test scoring? Like the literacy scores are abysmal, so what's the plan for that?
Yeah, so there are routine updates that the Board of School Committee gives, but there's a number of steps that they've taken. If you dig into the data that was released, I want to say in the fall of last year, that
Marginal.
there are increases going on. And post-COVID, I mean, they're going to be writing sociological essays for generations to come on what it meant to have students locked away for 3 years, which, again, I mean, I wasn't mayor at the time, but that's...
versus like percentages of a point. You know
Couldn't-
what I mean? We're all back in person now, so there's...
Couldn't
no
agree
space.
with you more. Sir?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on low-income housing. What I see around the city, a lot of apartment buildings, condo units, and so on. But comment on how come I'm not seeing more of the ranch or Cape style, 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes, which I would say starter homes.
Yeah.
But much less cost, which you see being built around the city, these huge mansions. What, those are.
Yeah, so so I think this kind of goes along with what your question was earlier, sir. I apologize, I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry? No, I'm sorry, the gentleman in the back, yeah. But there's a project that just went in Ward 8, or was just approved in Ward 8, which is similar to what you're referring to, where it's the smaller homes. These are probably, well gosh, when I bought my home, it was $239,000. We won't see that again.
What's the average price tag on those new homes?
Yeah, about $400,000.
That's not affordable housing.
I didn't say it was.
I just sold a home on Uville Street.
I didn't say it was.
I just sold a home on Uville Street for $525,000. That's right here. That's a big issue.
Yeah, and
And the
we
market
have
decides
way
it,
too, we don't have nearly enough supply in the city of Manchester. And when you have so many people trying to live here and a very little supply, that means when 5 people are bidding on a house, they're going to continue to bid because there's no other supply. So we have to build more in the city of Manchester if we want to see prices come down.
Maybe build more in the 300,000 range.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell a builder what to do.
But we
I think
can
that's an
approve those
invasion of
plans, right?
that's an invasion of the free market. Nor do I believe in rent control.
No, but the building and the department that approves it can suggest that there be lower cost, correct?
It depends. It depends. For a developer, they have to make it pencil. So if they're going to build lower, I mean, we're still at a time where inflation is extraordinarily high, so they're going to have to go get LIHTC credits. They're going to have to go work through New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. They're going to have to go through HUD. They're going to have to go through a number of these different entities to get these credits to make it pencil. So that's why, you know, when you're building units, when you're building like condo buildings and things like that, why you're going to have some that are market rate and some that are lower rate and lower income, because there has to be a blend in there for them to make any money. I can't tell a developer not to make money.
No, but we could not approve their.
So that's on the planning board side.
Right, but you have a.
So
tremendous
I nominate people to them, but that's where from a legal standpoint or an ethical standpoint, I don't tell the planning board and I don't tell the zoning board what to do, because I nominate them and then they're quasi-judicial and I don't tell them what to do. So anytime I've ever nominated somebody to one of those boards, I say, this is the last time you're going to hear from me until you're off the board, because that's an unethical position for me to be in, to tell them what to do. Yes, ma'am.
Questions. What happened to those?
Are we going to clean up Rock Ribbon?
That's the second question. But
Okay.
what happened to those 3 rangers?
So they all floated into different departments. So they got picked up. One of them I think went to the police, and 2 of them went to DPW.
It's just general employees?
Yeah. So we have 23 vacancies in the police department. Yeah. So one of them went in there, and we have about 30, 40 vacancies in DPW. Yeah. So we were able to fill those vacancies.
Okay, so the second question is, as I had mentioned to you before, there's a group of us who want to get into the woods at Rock
Yeah.
Ribbon and clean it up. But we need city buy-in to you and equipment.
Yeah, so last year I actually went with DPW, I went with police, and I went with Squad 1 in fire to go back there and clean up part of the area. We have ARPA funds that we set aside in DPW to help clean up sites like that. So this is absolutely something that if a problem still exists, that's absolutely something we can go and tackle. What I would ask is if you could call, or Daly, can you make a note? Yeah, so clean rock rimmon, that'll just be my cue to call Tim tomorrow and we can get it set up.
I'm in touch with Kate Walker.
Oh, okay. Oh, when was the last time we talked about it?
Email yesterday.
Oh, okay. All right, so it's fresh in their mind. So if I ping them tomorrow and say this came up at my town hall, I can absolutely, talk to them
It's
about
just
it.
too wet to walk in there right now.
Yeah, okay. Oh, too wet to walk in? Yeah, the snow melting? Yeah, okay.
Because it's a big.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you want another copy?
Please.
Okay. A lot of residents from the neighborhood, Phillips Street and Joseph Street Extension. I know we've had communication with the city, we're seeing articles in the paper, we're talking we're communicating with Kelly. I know there's not a lot that can be done, like tonight or this week. If we went to Goffstown,
Oh, yeah.
Board of Adjustment last week.
Yeah.
Postponed.
They postponed it, right? Yeah, till April?
But the developer here gave a pretty, I thought was a pretty good explanation of where the process is. I think we've been asking the city, tell us about the process, give us some support, give us some instruction. It looks like it's a long way down the road, so although that may be true, I think we're all in the neighborhood here to say, hey, this is really important to
Yeah.
us. And the article that struck me in Sunday's paper, was it seemed to be an opinion coming from the city solicitor. It was mentioned, just put a gate at the end of the road and that's.
No, it's,
But it's not as simple as that.
no, it,
And he seemed to be indicating there would be right-of-way streets there
mhm.
that legally could be blocked. So does that open our neighborhood up to having this development going? Because our big concern is the only entrance exit is Phillips Street onto Goffstown. And
Yeah.
if we're ever there in the morning or afternoon commute, it's a bare mountain.
Mhm.
They go put 36 more houses in.
Right.
We'll never get out of our neighborhood safely, especially if there's a school bus, the school bus and so on. So
Yeah.
we're here, I guess, to say, hey, don't let it go out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So our Director of Planning and Community Development, Jeff Belanger, actually, we could probably just send them all did you guys all leave like an email address?
Yes.
Okay, so our Director of Planning and Community Development, Jeff Belanger, he came up and gave a quick presentation to the board on where it currently stands, the project. And then, but within our agenda meeting packet that he gave, or that all of us get on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, he gave a 2-page outline of where the project currently stands and what we can do as a city of Manchester to have input and have say. We have to have say in it because we are in a butter to that. So we will have a say in how this process goes forward. I have a great relationship with the town manager, and I had a meeting last year with all of the contiguous communities of Manchester with all of their town managers, so I can always reach out to the Goffstown town manager and have that conversation with them as well, and talk to them about where the process stands and make sure that Manchester's voice is heard in this. Absolutely.
We're not gonna try it.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's absolutely not one benefit to our neighborhood, other than after all these years of being quiet, just having local traffic, now we have a thoroughfare.
Yeah.
And none of us want that. You
Right.
wouldn't want it if it was your neighborhood.
Yeah, so I live on the corner of Somerville and Mammoth. And yeah, and it leads out into Candia Road and the highway.
Okay.
So people are zooming. Actually, it's funny. So Station 7 is right there with the fire department. And so they have to blow their siren before they hit the T, to turn left or right onto Mammoth Road. So they always seem to pull it right in front of my house. And so I had dinner a couple weeks ago. And I said, I know that you do that on purpose when you go by my house and wake up my wife and I. But yeah, no. So I feel the pain. You bought your house with a certain expectation, and yeah, right.
Somehow that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if-
We do have rights.
Needs a couple of acres, can Hooksett move in, maybe Bedford, kind of, it just seems
Yeah.
like a precedent.
Or we could annex them and then take over. Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. If you guys leave your emails, I'm happy we can email you over the agenda packet that includes that, or we can just email you that specific part of the packet and you guys can take a look at where we currently stand. But have you guys gotten an abutters notice yet?
No.
Okay.
Just one person on Catherine Street, because his land abuts that property.
Yeah.
And there's only, just that one way. Have you ever been out
Yeah, yeah.
there? South Street?
Yep. Yeah. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, I live, yeah. I live in a single family neighborhood, and I certainly appreciate, actually the perfect, or the most analogous situation is where I grew up. There was, my dad bought the property and it was like an acre and a half. And behind that acre and a half was like 120 acres of woods. And then it led into a lake. And it was, he bought this and he was like, this is gonna be great. My two boys are gonna be, he built the house, but my two boys are gonna be able to play for as long as they want in the woods, cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, whatever. And then they built, I still call it the new development. I mean, I'll be 40 this year, and it was probably 35 years ago that they built it, but it was a new development. And my dad went and fought the planning board for like a year and a half because they wanted to put like 140 homes back there. And he eventually fought it down to 65 or 70, and he won some like Citizen of the Year award from this group. But yeah, that's what our voice is as citizens, is to say, look, we're impacted by this. We don't want to be impacted by this, and have your voice heard. And that's where the city can weigh in as well. And the city can weigh in through the planning department. The city can weigh in through the board of mayor and aldermen. And we have a number of, and you guys will be able to go as abutters. You'll be able to go to that meeting when you get your abutters notice.
So we're not abutters, but we do live on.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So.
See, the only way we get information around is to go from house to house.
Yeah, I got you. I'll get it. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
In articles in the newspaper and everything, you're always talking about water and sewer. We don't have sewage.
It's all separate.
I don't know if, I assume that the engineers that are working for, Dubai and the Allies understand that, but there isn't any. So they've got another thing that they need to consider.
Right. Okay. That's really helpful to know. Yeah, we can absolutely, utilize that going forward in any of our responses.
Right, because they think they're getting something, but they're not going to, and they're going to have to deal with it in some way. Either everybody, a septic tank or something, because apparently, and I did find this, somebody mentioned that the sewage stops, like, where, Montgomery Street? Or
I don't think I saw you when you came in. But no, if you gave us signatures, I've seen it. Yeah.
We've got more besides that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think another point that you pass along, a number of years ago, Scott was going to put like a trucking something, industrial, around that area where right now the athletic bubble, the gas station is there. Manchester got involved with Boston at that time with the idea not to have all these big trucks come down Boston Road. We see this as some of our developer didn't know about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful for institutional knowledge.
There's a lot of stuff that he was happy he heard from us that he didn't realize, about one way down, Phillips Street. Phillips Street said, used to be a dirt road. Okay.
Yeah.
I first started working there.
For the city?
For the city.
Oh, okay.
When I started working there, they were back, they call it backseat. They put oil down, and they back up the truck and sand over it. Remember that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
Okay. Do you have something, sir?
Yeah, the work is gonna start building, working on the Amsgate Bridge this week. What about, is that going to be, is that still on?
The 10-year plan?
Yeah.
Yes. And that, so John Stephen, executive counselor, Stephen, this is something that conversations that I've had with him. So that we have to make sure that that remains on the 10-year plan. We have to make sure that we're addressing that, because obviously it's a huge challenge, but it also opens up areas. It makes it easier to commute through it, but it also opens up other potential development areas which we can't touch while that's not up to current day speed. We can't handle the additional infrastructure, the additional traffic that would bring about, and it makes for a huge pain in the rear end. Yeah. So no, infrastructure is a huge piece to this, right? So now we're out of the winter months, and we had a tough winter, or at least we had a tough 10, 15 days of the winter, towards the end with back-to-back storms. But now that the snow's gone, and now that it's getting a little bit warmer, knock on wood, we don't have any snapbacks, but now that it's getting warmer, we're seeing potholes, right? So last year, actually it was interesting, last year in February, I filled a pothole with DPW. It was February, so I'm like 2 months into my term, not even a full 2 months into my term. And they told me that they had already filled 900 potholes by the end of February. So do you guys use C-Click Fix, or the app that we have? Okay, so if you see something, say something. Because DPW, even with the 30 vacancies that they have, they try and respond within 48 hours, 72 hours of getting a pothole come in. Of course, they have to prioritize it, so the bigger potholes come first and the smaller potholes come last. But this is also a piece of the budget where I want to make sure that we're investing fully in our roads and our infrastructure.
What is that website?
C-Click Fix. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, either one.
Thanks. Hi, Mayor Ruais. I just wanted to circle back to the Beach Street School and the 3 middle schools. When you said you couldn't do anything in January, when you had the full support of all of us 7 Republicans to tell them to hold the line and come up with a better plan, but you refused to listen to us. So my concern is the equity for all children, now that only 4 schools are being taken care of, and there's a missing park in the Beach Street area. So when you say you're against the $2.4 billion next, so those kids don't matter, so this school doesn't matter, I just don't understand. You have the support of all of us. We helped elect you. You know it. You know we helped you, and we're going to support you, but you chose to go down the line of being okay with the school being $306 million, going to 4 schools, and not thinking about the other schools when we could have taken the $306 million and taken care of all the schools.
So,
Go back
I
to
mean,
the drawing board.
there's no park that's missing right now. I mean, that the Beach Street School is going to be there for at least another 2 years. Yeah, so there's no park missing. There are 3 parks in that adjacent area as well, so the kids are never not going to have access to parks. I disagree with the $2.6 billion in priority 2, but that doesn't mean that they can't come back with a better price tag for other schools so that we can address the equity issues in other schools. This isn't an either-or proposition where we either do nothing or we do all of it. I mean, that's not responsible governing. You can easily break that down and make it so it's reasonably priced. But the alternatives, if there were a plan that was brought to me, and I talked to the school district about this, but if there was a plan that came forward and said, look, this is the better thing that we can do. But from a governing standpoint, you can't just say no to things. You have to be able to come forward with a plan. And there isn't one that's been presented. The other options that I had seen and that I had taken a look at would have cost more money, which means we would have had to have gotten an additional bond to do more work. There aren't 10 votes on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, as you know, for an additional bond. The cheapest, most effective option that we had that would cause the least amount of disruption was to build the new school. It's the same statement that I made 2 months ago.
And
Yeah.
the other schools, and would that increase if you decide on something else with the school board? That's going to affect our property taxes.
So you do or don't want to build new schools? Because it's going to affect our property taxes, so you don't want to build it. It won't affect.
$306 million and gone back to the 2021, where we remodel all the schools. And even if we have to bump it up. So to me, it's working smarter with our money. For
Okay.
all the children.
Yeah, and I disagree with the $2.6 billion phase 2. But if they wanted to come back with a more reasonably priced plan, then I think it's certainly something that the Board of School Committee and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen would consider. Yeah.
In the spirit of having a voice in our community, thank you for showing up to all of your meetings as an alderman. What is it that it takes for someone to be asked to step down for non-performance? Because here in Ward 12, Carlos Gonzalez is not here. He's your school board representative. He has a 68% attendance rate issue.
100% of
Yeah.
what you just said.
So why are we allowed to just have that voice stolen? Because here's the thing. If he's not there, he doesn't vote. So when can we get him replaced?
We have an election this year.
No, I would love to bring a new business, a failure to perform, and that should not have to wait. He's not even here. He does not care. And that's unacceptable.
So
My son goes to this school, okay? He's in the 1st grade, and he doesn't have a voice because everybody decided they wanted to vote for more of the same. But again, he's still not here. 68% of the time he's not showing up.
I can't.
That's unacceptable.
I can't speak for
Can we
for
propose
Carlos.
a new attendance policy for all elected officials?
I mean, anybody can propose something, certainly.
So I would love that. Can we commit to that?
Yeah, I don't
On
have
business?
any problem talking to the school district and figuring out if there are existing policies in place that could be looked at for any members, whether it's Board of School Committee
I
or
think it's
Board of Mayor and
misconduct,
Aldermen.
honestly. It's negligent and it's misconduct, and I think he should be removed.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I even approached him on it,
About the MSP.
and I got no answer.
Yep.
I approached some other aldermen about it and got no answer.
Well,
What
I'm
We
just
have
here
a-
to tell
What do we
you,
do? What do we do about
you should have voted for me. I'm just
Sir.
kidding.
I
We
know
have
that's
a-
right. I know who you are. I did.
So we have
I stood out there and told him, I said, you shouldn't even be elected.
It's unfortunate.
So we have a question over here.
Now, about the MSP area, which started now, that's gonna be a lot of fun for probably a couple of years. But what's the deal with the deforestation in the middle of the circle? Which that part of it?
What's that?
Like a white highway.
Yeah, so what I can do is I can talk to DPW and I can get you all the specs for what the plan is long-term for that area. I don't want to speak out of turn just and give you incorrect information, but I can get what the plan is for that entire area.
So that's part of the revamping of the entryway.
It's going to be a portion of it, yeah, yeah.
All of a sudden, there's no trees.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, that was going to be the big piece. So the piece of the 10-year plan is to widen 293, similar to, so like I grew up in Salem. So like with the widening of 90, I mean, I remember those conversations when I was like 7, and it took 30 years to do down there from exit 5 south. You know, it shouldn't take that long for this one. But that's one of the things we were looking at when we were looking at putting United Therapeutics up in Hackett Hill was what's going to be the access there, because we don't want to disturb any residents up here in Ward 12. And if we are going to develop up in that area, then we have to make sure we have the proper infrastructure to be able to carry folks along that route. So that's where I was on the phone with the governor, at the time, Governor Sununu, but I've had the conversations with Governor Ayotte as well about ensuring that that area not is just on the 10-year plan, like the 8 to 10-year plan, but in the 1 to 3 year plan of the 10-year plan. So certainly nothing ever gets cheaper the longer it stays, right? So, you certainly would rather do it earlier rather than later. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, did you have a follow-up?
Oh, just, what happened to me once, I was walking, doing my walk, I went around the MSK circle, and I got to the hotel, and the sidewalk ends. So I have to cross onto the island and go back on northern part of the bridge, so you can cross the river. Let's take Uber for the stop signs. Use a crosswalk. Okay, need help. There's no crosswalk.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, one of the things that I'm looking at in my budget is those kinds of additions, because I've heard it when I came here to Ward 12, and I heard it when I came to Ward 11, is pedestrian safety. So we have dollars that are going to be available in my budget for crosswalk signs, or for the signs, the blinking signs, but also for the white lines. Yeah. Because if it's not apparent for you as a driver, you're going to blow through it, and somebody, you're going to get pulled over, and
You're going to time into the traffic, especially that move.
yeah. Keep your head on a swivel out there. Yeah.
But that's,
Yeah.
He's stopping.
Yeah. This has got to be my last one. We're at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, you can even send us information on this too.
Okay.
I know there's a sewerage issue in Manchester going into the drinking water. How is that whole thing going to affect our sewer and water bill and all that stuff? And is it going to be guaranteed to be 100% fixed once this?
And the school.
Yeah, so this is going to be roughly a 30 to 40 year project. So for the last 26 years, the city of Manchester has been working on its CSO, the combined sewer overages. So we have about 400 miles of pipeline in the city of Manchester. Of that 400 miles of pipeline, about 100 miles of that is over 100 years old. So where our population right now is 115,000. What do you think our population was 100 years ago, right? So they're totally ill-equipped to deal with the current population. So the challenge we have is that every single year we dump 280 million gallons of raw sewage into the Merrimack River. There's, if anybody knows Kathy, you said you're Ward 5, right? Kathy Paquette, Ward 5. I did a town hall with Kathy over in Ward 5 with everybody in her neighborhood. Every time it rains, not a 100-year flood, not a 100-year storm, not a monsoon. Every time it rains, they have human waste, raw sewage, sludge coming up into their basements. Absolutely atrocious, abominable. So 5 years ago, the city of east end of the city, like by me in that Somerville Street, Mammoth Road, like that, it dips around too, yeah. But so 5 years ago, the city of Manchester entered into a consent decree, which basically says, I know that we are breaking federal law and we are going to fix it. So under the Trump administration, they entered into this consent decree. And the consent decree basically said, we are going to build this new pipe and sewer system because we know that we need to fix this. So, yeah, so we're building it.
Inside the schools?
I'm sorry?
Is the drinking supply safe inside the schools? Because I did get a notice here that there are certain bubblers that are shut off due to lead piping. So that's already like on the radar, but if we're dealing with a bigger biohazard issue, the children obviously have a much smaller immune system, let's not expose them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. No, I mean, I can ask the school district, I can get a specific count if there are, water bubblers that are shut down, yes. Yeah.
I love that, thank you.
Yep. All right, that's what I got time for. Thank you all so much for coming out. Really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.